hire that person or get in this store, do whatever, like all of a sudden all these problems will magically disappear, and they really don't, right?
No, they get bigger and they spawn new problems.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the podcast. This is Chandler Lyles, your host, and I'm really excited today to have a new guest on, Reid, the founder of 26 Shirts. This guy's got a story, and he'll tell you, it's technically a t-shirt company, but really they're just masquerading as that. They're a fundraising company, and I can't wait to hear about this. These are some crazy stats, Del, and I'll welcome you into the show. The video I saw earlier, 10 years, and I know you guys are older than that now, so these numbers are probably larger. You guys have raised almost $2 million across 1,300 campaigns for people in your community and across the world. Welcome to the show, man. How in the heck did this thing get started? What is this? Is a monster, man.
Yeah, 26 Shirts. It was just a crazy idea I had 11 years ago now. So to your point a moment ago, we passed 2 million not that long ago, which is insane. But it was an idea I had for a 1-year community service project, which is now about to enter its 12th year. So it's, Buffalo, Western New York. It's an awesome giving community that we have, and people just lined up right behind us to support us. And it's been a fun ride so far.
Well, brother, I got to give you kudos, man. Most businesses don't make it 5 years, and then even less of them make it 10. So the fact that you've made it 11 is really impressive. And I think there's some level of humility and the fact that this is bigger than you guys that's really contributing to a lot of that success. Like, you have found a way via your core values and who you are as a business to really stand out in the community. Has there ever been a time where it's like it's hard to maintain those core values and the mission that you're on in a world where you're trying to build a business at the same time it's a nonprofit, or you got the charity arm, but you got to turn a profit, pay salaries, all the things? That's a hard thing to balance. Like, how do you do that? Has there ever been a time where it's been difficult to do?
Not really, in terms of the balance of, the temptation to take an easy route or to fudge something. That's never really been a thing for me. I credit my faith. This is something that is, this whole business is coming, from my heart, from my faith, from, my, belief that, the time you're given should be spent investing and helping others.
Yeah, I love that. There's this book by Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game, where he talks about how some people get into business and they think it's a football game, right? You guys are very tied in with the Bills there in Buffalo, and we'll get into that in a minute. But like, in a football game, there's agreed upon rules, there's agreed upon winning and losing, and there's a time frame where it ends. And once the game's over, there's a clear winner and the game's over. But the Infinite Game is a game where it just goes on and on and on and on forever and ever. And that's kind of what you're describing there. It's like you truly are finding a way to just enjoy the day-to-day journey that you're on versus like trying to get to some mythical finish line out there. And I think that a lot of early entrepreneurs that are just getting into it for the first time, they think, if I can just get to this point, if I can just break $1 million in sales, if I can just, hire that person or get in this store, do whatever, like all of a sudden all these problems will magically disappear. And they really don't, right?
No, they get bigger and they spawn new problems. they just, maybe they don't get bigger, but there's always a problem to replace a problem you just solved.
That's right. So you mentioned faith and family, and I want to touch on that because I know that's such a big part of your story. Like, what role do those two things play in your success over the last 10 years?
If I'm being really real, as recently as this morning, where my wife will tell me, you're focusing on the business a little too much. You got to keep the balance. And that's something I struggle with as an entrepreneur, as a human, is balance. But I have an amazing wife who will check me, and say, like, hey, listen, you're getting a little out of line. Yeah, God bless her for that, Yeah, I don't know. How can family not be the most important thing? Like I said, I lose sight, but I always come back to, like, these are my, these are literally my people. Like, I have two daughters. Those are my people.
Yeah.
But
so when your wife brings that up to you, what do you do in that moment? Like, how do you have like a process or okay, I'm going to reset my calendar, or like, cause how it is. I know how it is, at least when you're building a business, it's so all encompassing, especially there's certain seasons where it's just like brutal. Like, what is your process for, okay, somebody I really love and trust and respect, has let me know that some activities I'm doing aren't lining up with what I'm trying to
Mm.
actually build. To your point, on my deathbed, the I love the eulogy example where it's like, what do you want people to say at the end? And it's like that person that comes up. I can be defensive sometimes when my wife. I got one of those too that she brings it up, and I'm like, oh man, my initial reaction is like, I'm not doing that. Da, da, da. And then like 10 minutes later, when I stop being dumb, I'm like, you know what? I think I am doing that. I'm sorry. What can we do to fix that? So I'd love to learn from you. What can I do to be better next time?
You stole my whole thing, man. It's like, what do you say? Like, well, I get defensive. I probably
Yeah.
say something like kind of terse or jerky, and I don't mean.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, no, humility, man. It's important in every walk of life, and sadly, in my home, sometimes that's when I have the least. And but I know my wife does not have an agenda. My wife wants the best for me.
yeah.
She wants the best for our daughters. And so often, sometimes I have to go through that whole exercise that you just laid out there, where it's like,
Mhm.
no, because you're still kind of focused, right? No, no, I'm not doing it. Oh, okay, well, so I'm really proud. Today it was, early on, like, you're right. I know you're right. I'm working on it. I'm going to get better at this. Trying to delegate more to my employees with certain things, because I don't
Mhm.
have to take everything on. Um, but uh, but yeah, like I said, my wife is a very gracious, loving person, and she's also doesn't take any crap. I need that. I need that. I didn't know this was gonna be a therapy session. Your listeners are probably like, bro, all right, come
And
on, let's talk about the Bills, or let's talk about
eh,
business.
yeah, it's the well, we can transition now. Well, the power of an open-ended question, it's wild. Like I get that up on the podcast a lot. People are like, "Man, I can't believe I'm talking about this." It's like, what's funny about that? I do want to get on a soapbox for a second. The most people in life don't give other people the space to talk and share their stories, and I know this just from our brief interactions and doing some research online. What you're doing, and I do want to give you your flowers here for a second because I love what you're doing and I want to promote it, but it's like you're doing so much to help other people that I'm sure there's not a lot of space for you to be able to get out there and share your story. So I'm glad that you're able to do that here because you're a guy that puts everybody else first, puts their needs first, puts their problems first. Like you're trying to help them. And so I'm glad that you're able to come on and do this now because the things you've done have been truly impressive. Like that is not blowing smoke. Like the stats say what you've done is pretty rare. And even like so now you said you have employees. Like how many employees do you guys have on your team right now?
I have 5 full-time employees.
Man, that's crazy. That's awesome. What's your general leadership philosophy when you're pulling those guys around the office on a weekly basis?
I try to not micromanage. I try to let them be
Mhm.
autonomous in terms of what their responsibilities are. I'm of the philosophy that if you're hiring somebody into your business, the tasks that you're giving them, they should be better at doing those tasks than you are.
Mhm.
Because then you're not going to want to, like, I'm going to wait for, Andrew to come in to handle this, or, I'll let, Josh take care of this, or Stephanie, or whatever, because they're better at this than I am. And if I do it, I can probably patch it together, but it's not going to be like how they do it. And
Mhm.
so I think it's for an entrepreneur, for a business owner, if you can surround yourself with people who are better at a given task than you are, then obviously, if your one goal is for your business to succeed, you don't want to be the reason why something isn't being done as well as it could be. So
Mhm.
for me, that's more of the hiring, not so much the management process. I'm still working through the management process. I'm not ready to write my book yet, but just trusting them, loving them. I am a big believer in family first, as we mentioned a moment ago. Not to keep going back to that, but I try to make sure that every employee knows that their family is as important to me as it is to them, as much as a business owner can be. Not to sound facetious or not to sound like whatever,
Yeah.
but like it's important to them. It's the most important thing in their lives. It's important to me. If you need to take a day off or you need to take time off for your family, take that time. Take and handle your stuff, and we'll get by while you're gone.
Mhm.
Um, but that's, I think, the biggest thing is letting them know, like, listen, business is still going to be here when you get back. Take care of your stuff. If you're not complete, if you're not whole, then um, then what are we doing here? What do we do?
Mhm.
So I think that's in terms of the management, that I'm still working on all that end of life, but and yeah, but
Well, I think leadership is a practice, right? Like it's like trying to get I don't know, a black belt in karate. Like you're never done learning, you're never done
Mm.
progressing, right? There is no final stage. Was there a story early on? You mentioned delegation in there where like you looked down and realized you were doing something and you had somebody else on the payroll where you were like, I should have delegated this to them or anything like that. Like when did you realize like, oh, I've got to start getting those smarter people than me to solve these problems?
I can tell you, I realize it every day, because it's a big temptation for me. It's just get it done, just do it.
Mm,
Last night, though, was the most recent example. So maybe that's not the first time, but it's the most recent. So after 11 o'clock, I'm on my recliner at home and I'm typing up the meeting notes for our team meeting today now, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Like Stephanie is our operations manager. She said, "Hey, if you want to give me some more work, I have bandwidth. I can do some more work." So what am I doing here at 12 p.m. or whatever it was,
hmm
typing up the meeting notes and the agenda and everything for the next day when it's something that she is very capable and able to do. So I
mm
sent her a message on Slack right then. I made sure her notifications were silenced first, and then sent it off and said, "Hey, tomorrow can we talk about you taking over the weekly meeting because it's just time that I don't have that you could handle it." So things like that, like, and I'm trying to run everything through a filter. I have this like notebook, as digital as the world is now. I have a notebook that I use, and it's every day. It's like, what do I have to get through? And I cross it off. I'm a sucker for a dopamine rush, I guess. But I'm looking at like trying to run all these to do items through a filter. Like, is somebody else here on staff capable of doing this task? Then I can give it to them. I can give this to them, or I can, So um, every business owner has heard the term: if you're working in your business, you're not working on your business. And I'll make headway, and then next thing I know, I'll look back, I'm like, man, past couple of months I've been working in the business, things like that. So it's constantly having to keep yourself in check because hours become days, become weeks, become months, and I develop bad habits so easily.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to do because I mean, you know this, when you're bootstrapping something early on, you either have a lot of time or you have a lot of money. And when you have a lot of money, you can use it to leverage other people's time, but we don't always have that in the beginning, right? And so we hire somebody to be able to do that, but we don't like early on, we're YouTubing how to do things, we're searching how to do things. Like we're the ones that got to figure it out early
Mm.
on. And so your brain learns, hey, if I have a problem, I just get to it like you said a minute ago, like I just do it. I just get the thing done. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden the business moves forward and we survive and we're healthy. And then your brain tells you, see problem, you fix ASAP, quick as possible. And then it just ends up with you like having this huge to-do list, which is what you have to do to a certain point until you get to the point where you are, where now you have a few employees and all of a sudden it starts to be like, okay, I got to break that previous habit. It's the old what got you here won't get you there kind of thing, you know. And if you have
Yeah.
aspirations to grow larger, right, you got to learn how to do that. But you've already got 5 employees, and you mentioned hiring being a strong suit. Like, I'd love to know, like, when you're hiring somebody, what's that process like for you?
Yeah. So I often will, tell them in the interview because at this point now, especially the past several years, as we've had to bring people on board,
Mm,
our brand is kind of well known in Buffalo. So if you're applying for 26 shirts, you probably heard of us before. You probably have some of our shirts.
right.
Um, so they understand our mission, they understand our why, and I'll often state in the interview like, "Hey, like this business is a baby, and it's always going to be a baby. It's never going to be able to like dress itself or take care of itself and feed itself. We have to take care of it. So we're a small operation. Our mission is very important. I'm not hiring babysitters. I need co-parents. And like if I'm tasking you with something, like my sometimes I wonder why God put me in this position because I feel like, I have such a small operating space in here, and like names and faces. I can only do one or the other, but not both. Um,
Mm,
but like the if I'm giving you something as an employee, like it's gone from here. I have to trust you that you're going to take care of it because I can't come back and say, "Hey, you taking care of this? How's this going on?" Like I
mm,
have to trust you that you're going to take care of it, and so I need co-parents in that space. And I do my best to like I mentioned earlier, take care of my employees. Um, probably in some cases I've been probably known to overpay, but at the same time, you pay you overpay your A employees or you end up with C employees, you
Mm,
know?
yeah.
Um, but they understand, like I said, they understand the mission and they understand. You work with me for a month, you'll know, like, oh, geez, all right, yeah, he needs help. So they, they know that they have to help. They got to take care of their stuff because I can't, like, I can't, I can't.
That's
So,
hilarious. It's like any shiny object syndrome for a new job. It like just diminishes so quick. You're like, oh, these are real people. I got to get in here and get to it. But you said
mm,
something there, like your product isn't just about T-shirts. It's the stories, the people. Ultimately the causes that are behind those things. Like, do you remember a time or a shirt or a campaign where you were just like blown away or had to stop and think like, I can't believe this is what I do. Like, what was that moment like?
yeah, there's been several of those over the years. Our biggest selling shirt we ever did was the one that was done for Damar Hamlin's uh,
Mm,
nonprofit. That one we
yeah.
raised over $102,000. But honestly,
Wow.
like that GoFundMe of his that he had, after that injury in Cincinnati, uh,
Mm,
January of 23. Um, that I was not surprised because just like everybody was like, I mean, I think they raised like $10 million to that GoFundMe.
mm,
But so that one notwithstanding, like in terms of like the whole wow, there's been a few times when you raise enough. We had one guy that we helped at the end of 2020. We raised almost like 25 grand for him, and he had developed, I believe it was cancer. It was in between jobs when he had no insurance,
mm,
and sadly, $25,000 probably wasn't for all his
yeah.
medical bills. Was probably you know I won't say a drop in the bucket, but probably had some strong financial commitments. But to be able to write a check to somebody for $25,000 is an amazing feeling. We um, we've done some of the ones we've done that have been really big have been like for nonprofits, and that feels good.
Hmm.
But when you have a campaign that will do really well, and you're sending somebody a check for five figures, which we've been blessed and been able to do that several times.
Mm,
Um, and they say, "Oh my gosh, this is going to change everything." You know, and
mm,
sometimes you'll get that like this is going to cover, and they'll lay it out. This is covering all my copays for my chemo, or this is my commitments for this, or commitments for that, or okay, now we can actually get the car fixed because we've been neither of us have a job because one of us is sick and the spouse is the caregiver. And now we can actually get the car fixed or something like that. I
mm.
mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
very humbling.
That's incredible, man. But the mission's so important, and I've done two different companies, and so I know how easy it is for like the business itself to start pulling you away from sort of the core
Mm,
reasons why you started the thing. Has
yeah,
that ever happened to you? Like, how did you end up finding your way back? Because it seems like you're on brand now, but I'm sure there's times where even talking about earlier, you get busy and you sort of forget to balance between life and work. Like, you got to
yeah.
balance between the mission and profits too, right? Like, we got to keep the lights on. Like, how do you maintain that?
Yeah, that's a great question because if we're not here, we don't help anybody, right? And
Mhm,
so it's this constant balancing act of raising as much money as possible while still paying rent and paying
mm,
employees and whatever else. Um, and there's been times like kind of to your point, but in terms of like our cause and our why, there's been times when like the first year or two we were doing this, like I was getting wrecked. It felt like every 2 weeks
mm,
learning another story, helping another family, doing a shirt for a little girl with leukemia, and then a month later she passes away. It was
mm,
starting to really like weigh on me, and I realized after a little while that I had been unintentionally, subconsciously building like this wall between myself and the families that we were helping, and
mm,
I think maybe as like some kind of defense mechanism or something. And I
mm,
find myself often like like subconsciously like I've been putting bricks on top of bricks. I'm like, no, I gotta tear that down because I don't get to I've had the awesome opportunity to be invited to parties where somebody is celebrating having, rang the bell at the cancer hospital or celebrating their final chemo treatment or whatever it is, like celebrating a win.
mm.
and beating something, and I'm to be invited to something like that. Like I feel like I don't get to celebrate the wins if I'm not there. If I'm not, feeling the losses.
Mhm.
That's kind of like, I don't want to say despicable, but like only allowing the happy moments to like infiltrate. Like I gotta, for what this business is, or for what this our mission is, like I gotta be in it. And
Yeah.
um sounds really dramatic, doesn't it? I'm not trying to sound super
No,
dramatic, but like,
it's real though, because I mean, honestly, I hate the line, the old adage is business isn't personal. And I think
mm,
that's the biggest line of garbage on the planet, because you ask
mm,
any of your employees if your business is personal to them, they'll tell you, yeah, it's personal, because if I get
mhm,
fired or if we get laid off or we miss a paycheck, like that's hyper personal. Or if my boss is a jerk, all of a sudden, yeah, it's real personal. Ask your the people that you guys specifically support within your specific industry, yeah, all those people that you're running these campaigns for are, it's a hyper personal thing. And then even, your customers beyond that, it's like, yeah, I would love to give you money for the shirt, but if I get the shirt and the product's crap or the design
mhm,
kind of sucks, like there's a lot of things that are really personal. And I think that we almost put this, to your point, buffer between us as a defense mechanism and like what's actually happening by saying things like it's not personal or something like that. So it's a little bit easier to
mhm,
deal with the fact that we dropped the ball or something. But it's so much better, at least I have found it's so much better to just sort of own what's happening, good and bad, because that's the responsibility we've taken on as entrepreneurs and leaders of companies. Like, I don't know if you agree with that or not, but that's
mhm.
that's how I've found success in life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like this, and obviously it's different for me than it is for my employees, but like I try to make this a family. Like I try to like I joked about it actually just a couple weeks ago. We were talking. I'm like, I want this to be a family, but only the good parts. I only want the good parts. Like, let's leave all
No
the,
crazy family.
this. Well, yeah, but let's leave this the sibling rivalries and the snippiness that sometimes you get when you live with somebody. You know what I mean? Like, let's leave
Hmm.
all that out. Let's just have the good parts. Let's lift each other up. Let's support each other.
Hmm.
In fact, I even said, really, at the end of the day, like, and credit to my wife for this insight, but like, everybody's bringing their own level of trauma um, into the workplace. Like we all have things going on in our lives, whether it's somebody's, you know, parent recently passed away, or somebody's dealing with this family illness or this situation. Like we all six of us are dealing with something,
Mm.
and we have to remember. You hear that saying like, "Be kind," because everybody is fighting an unseen battle. But I said even more for us, we know a lot of the battles that each other is fighting. So let's like love on each other. Let's lift each other up. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
Exactly.
But no, yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's like the stuff
um,
that worked for us when we were kids. All of a sudden, it comes full circle. You're like, oh, you don't treat people like you don't want to be treated. Do
mhm,
you got nothing nice to say? You keep it to yourself. Yeah, it's so funny how those like truisms, those simple truisms, they end up coming back when we're big, sophisticated entrepreneurs. And you're like, oh, I guess mom and dad were
mhm.
probably right all along. That's hilarious that
Yeah,
that ends up
it's
working out like
almost like
that.
they didn't. It's almost like they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, almost. Oh, I don't want to give them too much credit. I'm
Mhm.
sure that's probably
No.
my only listener to the show is my mom and dad. So with 26 shirts, you guys have a great product, you got a great mission, you got all this stuff going on, but we talk about all the time with High Beam, it's like if it's not the best products that win, it's the best known products that win. And one of the ways you help get your
Mm,
product more known is with marketing. And so that could be done with like word of mouth or ad campaigns or all kind of things. And marketing at the end of the day is really about connecting with people on an emotional level. Has there ever been a campaign that really shocked you with how much it resonated with your audience? And why do you think it was so, like, it resonated so much with them?
oh, there's so many. Yeah, we have a joke that like whenever we're confident that we're about to release, um, whenever we have confidence in a design that we're about to release, it's a bad sign because
Mm,
the ones that we think that we're going to put out there and they're going to blow up and everybody's going to love it, they kind of like fizzle, or sometimes they die on the vine. Sometimes we're
mm,
right, but some of the ones where we just kind of like put it out there, like, here's our shirt. I hope you like. People just like it's like, okay, I'm glad you like it. Um, but a specific example, which maybe doesn't fall in line with either of those, but like in 2020, the Toronto Blue Jays played in Buffalo at the Bisons. That's their AAA minor league team. They played in Buffalo because Canada had such heavy COVID restrictions, and even
mm,
though fans couldn't go to the games in Buffalo, uh, everybody was excited that we had a Major League Baseball team, here in the city. And we did a design that was like a mix of like the Blue Jays and a Buffalo and looked kind of like Guy Fieri. But it was at the time our best selling shirt we ever did. And to this day, it's like, I think number two. Um,
Dang.
is It's our second best campaign we've ever done. And that really surprised me. I mean, people love people in Buffalo love sports, but just the fact that a lot of shirt companies are putting out these things. Like the fact that we sold like 8,000 or 9,000 of them, whatever, was crazy to me. But
That's wild. Well, you guys are in a
yeah,
super competitive industry anyways. Apparel is brutal across the board for a whole bunch of reasons. But like, so like, what are you guys doing to actually stand out in the marketplace? Like, are you guys running ads? Are you just relying on organic social media content, your own email list? Like, what is the marketing plan here somebody can learn from?
plan.
No, friend, we do
uh,
the throw it against the wall and see what sticks. And
we
we
throw a
sold
lot of
9,000
spaghetti.
shirts and it works.
We throw we throw a lot of stuff against the wall. In fact, I've often joked using that analogy. We're throwing so much stuff against the wall, we don't have time to see what stuck, why it stuck, how we threw it. It's just we're like, well, it's just maybe it'll happen again. Keep throwing. But um,
That's amazing.
yeah, no, honestly, we kind of started. We kind of had a head start back in 2013. With the whole. I don't know how much your listeners know, but having like kind of co-founded Bills Mafia, I had a large um, social media audience already, and so 2 years into like the advent of Bills Mafia in 2013, I had this idea to do the 26 Shirts project,
Mhm.
um, and yeah, immediately as I announced this idea, people were on board right away, saying, "I'm going to buy all the shirts," and I'm an artist, I want to contribute, and how can I help? And I can't wait for this to start. You know what I mean? So immediately, we even had a local news say, "Hey, we want to do a story about this." Like all these different things. Like I was really blessed to have those things line up, and I don't take any of it for granted. Um, I still write now and then, like I'll write personal notes in our ShipStation software to certain customers, just if they've ordered so many shirts or whatever. I'm like, thank you so much for your support, Adele. I mean that sincerely because I don't
Mhm.
take any person for granted. Because, like you said, it's a highly competitive industry, and
Mhm.
if you want to buy a Bills shirt or a Bills adjacent shirt, like what we have, because we don't have the licensing, but like and you want to buy anything, you can buy it from so many different places, and you chose to buy it from us, and so that means a lot. So,
Mhm.
um, and we do Facebook ads, and we have an email newsletter that we put out like 3 times a week, and SMS marketing and stuff. Um, Word of mouth is a big deal, though. It's a big
Mhm.
deal, and honestly, the product is. You said what was it you said earlier? The best products don't
It's the best
always
products don't win. It's the best known products that win.
right, and so I think that's kind of true for on both sides for us because we have a pretty good foothold here in the Buffalo market, but
Mm.
also we have really good products. Like I'm a t-shirt snob, so I won't sell the absolute best blanks um, that I I'll sell it the best ones I can possible. And
Yeah.
if I won't wear a shirt, I won't sell it. Now there's some designs I won't wear. It's just like not my style, but like the actual shirt, um, it's we do the the best we can. So we kind of let those market it themselves because I want it so when a shirt arrives, like say you bought a shirt to help your neighbor across the street, you never
Yeah.
heard of 26 shirts. Um, but Jim is dealing with something, and you saw on Facebook like buy this shirt and $8 is going to go to Jim, so you bought the shirt. I want it so when that shirt arrives, the person pulls it out and they're like, "Holy smokes, this is
Mm.
the automatically the best quality T-shirt I have in my drawer." And so from that point on, like in theory, every family we help should be a little bit farther ahead of the previous family because that
Mm.
means more people have gotten the shirts, have learned about the product, and they're hopefully going to want to buy more. Now, instead of helping their neighbor across the street, now they're helping a stranger just because they like the shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I always love the line, it's not the best products, but it's best known products because it sort of wakes entrepreneurs up because a lot of people are really good at the thing, and you're even expressing your passion for the product right now where you're like, I am a snob when it comes to finding the best blanks to print on and do all those things. Like I'm constantly pushing that forward. a lot of people get addicted to that, where they want to stay in that space of like, I'm very comfortable here. My mom, my first business was a barbecue restaurant, and she was the chef at the restaurant. Like, she grew up farm to table, like she did the homemade meals, like she was the artist, and she was so close to it. And her and I had one of these, mother son arguments slash business partner arguments, which is a whole other story to share some other time, how family dynamics work in the business. But we had this conversation where she looked at me and she was like, I don't get it. Like, if like the food is so good, like why don't people just want to come and eat it? Like, what is the problem here? And I'm like, the problem is not the food. The problem is that we just aren't as popular as McDonald's yet. And like, that's sort of the point, is that I'm assuming that you have a good product. That's kind of table stakes to do business today. Online reviews and,
Mm,
information transparency and everything else that comes out now, like, it's just so hard to have a below standard product unless you're doing some crazy crappy Temu type overseas shipping thing, which is like you're selling $4 worth of stuff for, pennies on. It's just a nightmare. So I expect most entrepreneurs that I work with and talk to like have good products. I just say that to try to like shake them out of the like, hey, I know your product is great. I'm just trying to help you get to the next
mm,
stage. So,
no.
marketing is you're not alone. There's a lot of people that have built really successful businesses with like, hey, we got word of mouth, which means you have product market fit. Everybody's talking about it for free. And then on top of that, they're like, just activity breeds success. And that's cool to hear that
Hmm.
that's actually working for you guys. So I love that. So
No.
I'd love to, we're getting towards the end here. So I want to wrap it up with a couple more questions, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
you know, and this is maybe some advice for you to other aspiring entrepreneurs that are out there listening. They're thinking about growing their business, and like there's a little bit of fear when it comes to growing a business. Like, what advice would you give somebody who's, maybe struggling to keep their heart in the business, or sort of starting to feel burnt out? Because like we talked about earlier in the show, like it becomes all encompassing. Sometimes it's hard to have balance. Like,
Mm.
how have you stayed so connected to the 26 shirts mission over a decade?
Oh, I never thought about that. Like, because there's still kids that have cancer. There's still families that lost, their father. There's still
Mhm.
all those different scenarios. A mom fighting an illness that is going to leave the family and
Mhm.
that's put the family in an awkward position. That stuff is still happening.
Yeah.
Every week I'm learning another. We're putting out. I'm learning like 3 or 4 a week. It feels like, but like every week we're spotlighting another family dealing with a situation. How do you get burned out on that?
Mhm.
Um, maybe okay. There's times that I'm definitely feeling burned out. Let's be real.
Yeah, sure.
But on that, but you keep coming back to like, well, you know, this family needs us, right?
Mhm.
They approached us, or their advocate approached us, and and I try to be real with them, at the outset when I onboard people, like, hey, just so you know, like, you see that number at the top of the website, the 2 million plus. Um, there's been some big campaigns in there, so we can't guarantee everything. We're going to try our best and everything. So I got to try our best. We can't mail
Yeah.
stuff in. You're like, well, this will be good for this week. That's fine. Just do this one. This design that somebody submitted. Just let's just do it, and that'll buy us a week, and we can come up with something new for the next. No, no, no. It's like it's very Bernie outy, but like you got to deliver every Monday for a family. And do we fail sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. We put a shirt out there that nobody wants to. Turns out nobody wanted, but
Mhm.
um, but we didn't put it out there just thinking it doesn't matter. Sometimes we miss the mark, but we're always throwing. We're always trying. So it's hard. When the stakes are high, I guess. So um, just remembering your why. And I think
Mhm.
that's a Simon Sinek
Yeah,
as well too, the why. But um, yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. Why did you
that's
start?
good.
Why did you start doing this? What were your goals when you started it? Was it to just make a ton of money and sell, which is fine if that was what you started the endeavor for? All right, so like, have you made all that money yet? Have you sold it yet? No. All right, we'll get back to it.
Mhm.
Or is it like something that you like? In my case, like this is going to be like the for the foreseeable future. This is life. Um, why did you start doing it? What were the things you thought about? The day you got laid off from your job and decided you're going to do this full time. Like, what did you envision? What did you imagine?
Mhm.
Have you accomplished those yet? Have you not? Um, if you have, what are the next things that have happened that,
Yeah.
that you've thought of that you want to tackle?
Yeah, I think what I heard in there is the fight's not over. So, and if it's not you, then who? And I love that about you guys, man. I love that mission that you guys are on. So last question here, and then we'll get you out of here. what do you think is the best part of owning your own business, and what has been the biggest challenge for you so far? So, same coin, two different sides.
Uh, the best part is not being beholden to somebody else's goals, ideas, whichever. Like I I'm on a mission, and I don't have to say. I'm never struggling with a boss. I guess that's the most succinct way to put it. Like I like being in charge of of this. Not like I like being in charge, but I like calling the shots. I like if something fails, it's on me, and I can learn from it. Nobody is more forgiving of themselves than me,
Right.
or whatever, or ourselves. Like, all right, I'll learn from it. All right, move on, next thing, instead of somebody else making a mistake. Like, oh, he's probably going to make that mistake again. I bet I'll have to go through this whole motion all over again. Or um, also, I don't like wearing polo shirts, button down shirts, and slacks and ties. I tell everybody that I hire, like, wear whatever you want, but if you want to dress up for work, then you're weird. But that's fine. Come here and be weird. But it's just t-shirts and jeans and everything. Like, I, so forget that.
That's funny. When I
And so that's
convince you to
about.
hire me someday, I'm going to show up in a three-piece suit just because, marketing is all about being different. So
There you go. Boom, done. All right, perfect. So you want to be weird, be weird. Be you though.
I love
Um,
it.
so that's the best part, and the most challenging part has been. It's a list. It's a list, man. I mean, just doing so many different things. You wear so many hats as an entrepreneur. You're doing accounts payable. You're doing accounts receivable. You're doing marketing. You're doing production. You're doing fulfillment. You're doing, and of course you delegate that stuff out, but that it all still falls at your feet. That's still
Mm.
like um, but early entrepreneurs. I remember when I first started doing this. Um, just doing. I had a business partner at the time, and it was a great relationship. But he owned another business, so I was there full time, and that was the agreement. That I would be doing this full time, and whatever. But you're doing everything. You're doing everything, and it's it can be exhausting. And so I don't know if you've ever seen that meme where there's two pictures of Homer Simpson, and one of them says normal people. It just shows him lying in bed sleeping. It says entrepreneurs. He's lying in bed with his eyes wide open and all these things. Like, did I send that email? Did I forget to pay that invoice? Did that invoice get paid? What are my plans for tomorrow? Things like that. It's just like those 3 a.m. thoughts that you wake up like, I totally forgot to do that. Oh my gosh.
Mm. Well, you'll be glad to know you're not alone. I think that keeps me up. It keeps a
Mm,
lot of people up. It's a. I'm trying to think how to say this the best way. I don't really have words for this yet, but there's this thought that I've been trying to like articulate over the course of all these conversations I've had with different entrepreneurs, and it's really like there's something respectful about finding all this responsibility in the world and like putting it on your own shoulders, and like that's what you're giving back to society, and I think that's ultimately what small businesses do in America specifically. It's like you are employing 5 people, you are giving back to the community, um, you are an example for other people to look to, and that's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of moving pieces when you don't have some massive Fortune 500 10,000 employee plus business to support you, where you got like
mhm,
individual specialists who can do one thing better than anyone else in the world, and you just delegate that problem to them. It's like you got a lot of generalists in the house. Like you yourself have to both maintain the vision for the future you see for the company, and then like also the details of the day to day. It's not easy. And,
mhm.
I tell people all the time, like people ask me like, oh, what advice would you give me for starting a business? I try to talk them out of it. I'm like, you should be, and you're
Yeah.
laughing because it's true,
No,
right?
you're
It's
right.
like,
You're right.
it's
Yeah.
like it should be a conviction to the
Hmm.
point where like you just can't do anything else. And like you got to
Yes.
go scratch
Yes.
this itch. And if it's not
Yeah.
that, and here's the truth about the stats, like if you want to start a business, like you probably will fail. The stats tell us that if you make it 5 years, you'll probably fail in the next 5 years. And then here's the big money thing. Like the majority of entrepreneurs in the country don't ever make more than 50 grand a year. And
Yeah.
that's straight from the SBA, which is like you could do way better than that. And in most entry level jobs nowadays, like damn near you can go work at my arch nemesis McDonald's from the barbecue days and make 50 grand. Like it is crazy out there.
Mm.
So, you got to be careful. Well, Del, I appreciate you giving me the time, man. I'd love to know, what can we do for you? How can we support 26 Shirts? What's your big ask for our audience today, man?
Oh yeah. Well, head over to 26church.com, and if you're not a Buffalo fan, we've got a few different products on there that might interest you. Poke around. But if you're not looking for anything like that, scroll down to the bottom of the homepage. We have a YouTube embedded video of our short film that we released last year on our 10-year anniversary. Spend the 20, 25 minutes, whatever it is, watch that, maybe get inspired. That's all.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
get our watches up on YouTube.
I love it.
All right.
We'll link to that too in our email and show notes and all the good things. I will say, you're talking to the man, or you're listening, I should say, I'm talking. You're listening to the man who invented the phrase Bills Mafia, and that story is inside of that video, and I loved that. And there's a lot of other really good stuff inside that video, so we'll make sure to link to that specifically for you guys. Well, Del, appreciate you joining, man. Appreciate you being so transparent and sharing the highs and the lows and all the things. And even more so, I appreciate everybody that's spent this time with us and listened to a couple guys just share some battle stories from the the entrepreneurial trenches. Thank y'all for listening. We'll see you next week.